on the blog.
What blog?
I just can't get the PDF open down here.
What's the link?
Yeah, what's the link?
Allie knows it.
Allie knows it, so she's on it.
She just asked me
We're just gonna have the live and then go to them right after.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. I think they might do a formal announcement, and then we'll probably do a little banter, and then the president's going to talk after that. So everything should be coming down the same channel, I think. I have remote 6 and 2, I have New York and 3, and I have VTR 11 and 4.
Yeah, I was pulling it up right now.
Apparently. That made another decision. They're saying that Chief Justice
Roberts.
is the Healthcare Act.
That's what everybody thought. That it would be him. And that he was the one who would be writing this because he has not been very active in the other opinions that have been in the past couple of months. Also, both Obama and Roberts were students of the Lord's Prize.
What's the final word? Is it upheld or is it not?
It's upheld.
Chief Justice Roberts.
The entire ACA is subject to the exception that the federal government's power to terminate disciplinary clause is narrowly
I thought that Roberts would hold it. You can also take cover that there was a Republican-appointed conservative judge, Lauren Silverman, who had found it constitutional when it came to the U.S. Court of Appeals in the D.C. Circuit.
Do you want to give me Washington boxes, too?
Yeah. CNN Wire. In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court struck down the
See what's going on, 3?
referring people of violence. Weird, huh?
He just went away.
Do we have anything that we can...
He's back up. Yeah, see what's going through?
What does she need?
My audio's a bit out of sync. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. 1 2 3 4. 1 2 1 2 3 4 5. 1
You
2
probably put that
3
just
4. 1 2 3
in
4
queue.
5.
I just want to hear you say anything.
I just sent out.
I just want to hear what he was saying. If he was saying anything, but he went away. Looks like they shut down their Zero. You giving me Washington boxes?
That's fine. I just want to say that they have ruled, as did a lower court,
Your news minute's ready?
this is a tax, and therefore...
Do you want Todd to just report it?
Yeah, if we're not going to go live before 9:30, then I need a order.
All right.
I mean, adjust the script so that...
Todd, we're going to go ahead and try to get an updated minute in.
That down, because what it says here is, the bottom line is that it's upheld with the exception of the federal government...
Tell me when that's good to go, Gene.
One second, Floyd, I'm just renaming the clip so that it's not a checkered clip.
Fantastic.
Hopefully that didn't mess up your automation. It's ready now.
It shouldn't. Yeah.
You know, those aren't, that's not what this says.
I'm closing her up so we can do this minute.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, Todd.
She thinks she's freaking out. I don't have a essay mic in here. Can you just...
Oh, did I
Keep
not?
talking.
We closed
You want to
her
do
out.
this
You're
news
not
minute
hearing
on
anything
camera, or
right
do you
now.
want crappy Supreme Court video
We'll
off
hear
the
from
top?
Can we take the live shot from CNN as our...
Yeah, we should be able to.
Okay.
Here we go. Animation in 3, 2, 1.
Can you shut down my computer upstairs?
Mike.
Yeah.
Cue.
I'm Tom Silver with your news in a minute. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld the individual insurance requirement of President Barack Obama's health care overhaul.
Let's
The
plan to get all
second
our
argument
arguments
that Congress wants to requiring most Americans to have health insurance or pay a penalty. Local civil rights leaders say the Austin Police Department uses excessive force against minorities. Members of the Austin NAACP and Texas Civil Rights Project announced they filed a second administrative complaint against the Austin Police Department. The resident of the Woodridge Department says things are just getting worse. The management spokesperson says they're still in the planning process of applying for permits before they start work. 48 families are still displaced after a walkway collapsed back in May, and that led to a mass code violations of the complex. The County Grand Jury has indicted Randy and Daniel on the murder of senior police officer Jaime Padron at a North Austin Walmart back in April. Daniel could face the death penalty.
Live after the hello.
The United States has been a leader in healthcare innovation.
Give me some Washington boxes.
I hope that we'll continue to see that, but we can only do that if
You
we
want the
continue to
AP
fight
script
for
or are you
repeal
ready?
the monstrosity of the
Anything
law.
you
Thank you.
My script is fine now.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can tax us and require us to
4 minutes. What they said is
the federal
you cannot
government
4 minutes.
Medicaid
produces,
payment
then they
state
can commandeer part of your paycheck, they can commandeer all of your paycheck. If they do that,
So
freedom
you do
goes
not
in
get
this
part of the
country.
amendment, you're gonna pay a
Our,
tax.
our recourse, as I see it today,
Yeah.
is do what we've said all along for the last 2 years and 2 or 3 months, and that's go back over across the hill, pass the 100% repeal of Obamacare,
So for this,
rip it out by
you
the
just do like animation to Todd.
Todd, and then depending, I think they might talk back and forth. I might take it a live. I was like, Todd will say there's a live look or whatever. The crowd that's gathered.
about the fact that this is a tax. I thought they couldn't rule on make a ruling right now. The tax has to go into effect first.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention it, but
3
wow,
minutes.
that was my understanding before this. That was one of the 4.
Good. You consider tax law in 2014.
2 minutes.
I got
2 minutes up.
Technicalities, all technical bullshit. I got you.
2 minutes. We're bringing her in for this, right, too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there she goes.
Right. What they said is if you refuse to expand Medicaid, we cannot take away your
She
existing
was saying like,
Medicaid.
yeah, I want to.
Yeah.
You can look at him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Minute 30?
1:30.
She's nervous.
Yeah.
She's nervous. Calm her down.
I'm not gonna give her a countdown. What should I say?
So what's the rundown now?
Disengaged when something like, I mean.
What?
He's totally disengaged.
Asking,
What's that?
what's the rundown? Read this, talk to Sherry, and then what?
Sorry, Joe, would you ask?
1 minute.
What we're doing?
The direction is we talk to Sherry, and then after that, what do we do?
Just keep going conversation with her, and then I'll tell you the rest of it.
Okay.
From that router one. The last audio just,
From news source.
How can they say the ruling and Obama can say specific things? We can assume that he's gonna win. How can AP say that?
30?
30 seconds.
The law of expansion.
Stand by about 30 out.
The expansion.
In the dissent, Justice Kennedy said, quote, "In our view,
15.
the entire act
15.
before us is invalid in its entirety."
10?
The conservative
10 seconds.
Justice Roberts joined the 4 liberal justices.
Yeah,
5?
Stand by.
4?
He had to.
3? 2?
And
1?
here's animation. Open his mic. Cue.
The U.S. Supreme Court upholds President Obama's requirement that Americans have health insurance. That individual mandate survives as a tax. In fact, the entire health care law has been upheld. Just moments ago, we heard the decision. The U.S. Supreme Court did limit the federal government's power to terminate states' Medicaid funds, but did not invalidate that provision of the health care law. Sherry Greenberg, she's the director of University of Texas School of Public Affairs, joins us with more on this. Good morning, Sherry.
Hey, how are you?
Very well, thanks for coming in. So, a lot of this has been kind of confusing. Let's break it down. When we say the ruling is upheld as a tax, what does that mean?
What that means is, and this is something that in fact last year D.C. Court of Appeals had ruled, and from a judge who'd been appointed by Republicans, so this is not entirely unexpected. The word mandate is not in the act, and what other judges have said is, look, this is actually a tax. It's a tax because if you don't comply, then you have to pay a fine. And so in this 5-4 decision with Roberts casting the deciding vote, which was really anticipated if it was going to go this way, that's what they have determined. This is a tax because you have to pay a fine, and mandate, therefore it is constitutional and it is upheld.
We heard of course, a lot of people rumbling about this. Sponsored a motion this morning. Take us back to the 4 parts that the justices were actually considering. What are those 4 parts?
Yeah.
Well, there are 4 different claims, we'll say, that were really before the justices. One was to look at whether this is a mandate. Another was to look at whether or not the Medicaid expansion was valid. Another was to look at whether this was a tax. Another was whether they could hear it. So there were 4 different constitutional challenges. 2 of the important ones that we're hearing about right now are, in fact, number 1, as you said, this is constitutional. They upheld the entire act because it's not a mandate. In fact, it is a tax due to the fine. And the other that's very important to many states, including Texas, and I think that will make our governor and attorney general rather happy, is that what they have said is that you cannot force this Medicaid expansion. That if states choose not to expand Medicaid, you cannot take away their current Medicaid funding. So that's very important.
That's really important for Texas, as you said. And you mentioned this just briefly. We're talking about Chief Justice John Roberts joining the more liberal judges on the court in this, upholding the health care reform. Go into detail a little bit. Was that surprising, or did we expect that?
Not shocking. In fact, there were a lot of people who did suspect it, including constitutional law professor Lawrence Tribe from Harvard, who taught both Obama and Roberts. And in fact, he spoke yesterday saying that he thought that Roberts would find this constitutional. And, you know, I would say in the betting pool yesterday, those who thought, and it was split, those who thought that this would be upheld thought that Roberts would be the deciding vote in finding it constitutional, and that it probably would be on the grounds of this being a tax and not a mandate. Because there also is this precedent from the appeals court in D.C. a year ago, where you had a Republican appointed judge who was appointed under George W. Bush, in fact, saying this is a tax and therefore constitutional.
Of course, this has been so divisive. We really didn't know what was. We had, you know, everybody was just thinking what this could have done. We had, you know, 2 different scenarios here: shoot it down or uphold it. So it's really a victory for President Obama, as we mentioned. It's a signature legislation, and the Supreme Court's decision comes in the midst of his re-election campaign. Do you think this will have an impact when we all head to the polls in November?
Shitballs.
Well, I'm sure right now you have many people giving their opinions on what this will mean to the election. Certainly, this was Obama's signature piece of legislation, spent so much time working on it, in fact, and not working on some other issues that other folks may have wanted. So in that respect, it is, I think, a very big victory. On the other hand, this will certainly give Romney and Republicans
animation out?
Rally around and against and oppose this. And
Do you want animation out?
Music with
so
the shot at
Okay.
CNN shot.
Thanks a lot, Sherry. We're going to continue this. We'll be right back after the break. Keep here.
And go music. And another matter.
Oh, that's fine.
And take it. Ooh.
Clear.
Thanks, guys. Good job.